Yeah. The only thing that's delayed is I'm going to Atlanta in May.
Yo, what, yeah, we live now, you know.
We live.
Yeah. We live in the building.
Hey.
Let me see. You know what I need to do? I need to get some
I'm
some
doing
intro music from.
so my other member Ali has his
And
ticket.
to get some type of music or
Some
something
hardcore music, yeah.
to just run it. You know, so everybody just comes in and then like, so we don't have to wait for everybody to come in before we start talking again, and then we just introduce the show and we got like 100 people in there or something. Yeah, we doing the our corner thing. Like we got 16 people now still, so we're gonna start rolling. You get me? We're doing the our corner thing. Obviously, last Sunday the man them never came through still, so we didn't get to record no our corner. So we're gonna do it online. You get me? Man's been saying that we need to like do some recaps anyway of our corner online anyway. So kind of good that it happened. How it happened? You get me? Oh yeah, we got a man them in the building. Man like Raven.
Hey.
Man like Shakara. Shakara's in another world. Man like Scatter Minds.
Scatter Minds is here. You know I'm here. Present.
You get me? So boy, the two topics that man's looking to touch on primarily. The first one is we're gonna look at the reasons why we even migrate to England in the first place and to the West just in general, why we leave our home countries. And the second one's gonna be you wanna introduce the second one, Raven?
Yeah. It's you know what? You might do it better to be fair. You actually worded it better before in life, so you would.
Yeah. Well, Raven came up with a topic still, but the second one was should a black community be held responsible for the actions of individuals within it? You know, like when individuals violate, when they do something, and it was in reference to the Liam Neeson the whole scenario what's happening with him right now, where he's like, yo, I want to any black person I find, man's fucking him up. It was in reference to that. True, he got violated, or one of these people got violated by an individual who happened to be black. So we're gonna look at the psychology behind that as well. You get me?
Yeah.
But that's the second. I don't know if I've done that justice, Raven. That's the come I wanted you to do. You know.
Yeah. Let me. Yeah.
You say you wanna take over now? Yeah.
Let me take over that, bro. Well,
Take over.
So I think basically it's literally group blame. So is it right or correct to tarnish a whole group by the actions of one? And obviously that is a reference to Liam Neeson. He said in his past when he was in Ireland that a dear friend of him was assaulted by an individual who was black, and his first natural response was to go and find a black person to beat up. And back in the days, this made sense to him, and that's one. If that makes sense to you, or if anyone can see the logic in it, and this is the one of the sources of it, basically.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the second topic that we're going to touch on still. But right now we're going to go into the migration one. Yeah, we live Shaka. We're going to go into the migration one, still looking at the reasons why we even migrate in the first place. You get me? Obviously, enough of the time and era. If you don't like it, why you don't go back to your own country? But even before that, still, like even as a little youth, man used to wonder, how come man feel like man's a foreigner over here? Like man's a minority group. Like where's the places where man's the majority? How come we ain't over there? Man used to question myself. You get me? So we want to touch on that. You get me? Me in particular, man's parents come from Jamaica, you get me? So the history of the migration from there, man, I know enough people know about the Windrush thing and all of that still. But we're gonna go deeper into it still. But Scattered, you're the political man still, so I feel you'll do that justice more still.
You're gonna throw it to me first. Oh man.
Yeah, jump in there, fam.
Yeah, that's calm. I could do this. Yeah, big up to everybody in the panel and big up to all the people in the chat as well. First of all, shout out to everyone who come through. Yeah, so basically on this topic, it is I think it's definitely an important topic for us to discuss in terms of immigration, because like the content said at the beginning, this is one of the big criticisms that often get thrown back to us is, why don't you go back to where you come from, or and why are you here in the first place if you don't like this country, etc., etc. And I think like that question itself can be answered separately in there. So I don't really want to like really pretend like this is a response to that question. That's a question that needs to be addressed in its own right. But in regards to why we actually are here and the reason behind it, like there are many reasons, obviously, and of course, you mentioned some, mainly regarding the UK and the African Caribbean community. Much of it was down to that Windrush generation. But the bigger question is to how we got there prior to that, which would be directly, unfortunately, the topic that people don't like us to talk about too often or bring up, but would be Western slavery. So the fact that we was actually forced into the Western world, like into the Western hemisphere, through conquest and colonization, and and ever since then, many of us, especially those of us who went to the Caribbean, became subject to the British monarchy. So our involvement with Britain was involuntary, and it was actually by force. Britain put itself in a position within our lives, and that's the position which we've been in ever since. Like, yeah, I mean, we get into it deep. I don't want to like say everything right from the off, innit? But obviously, there's a lot of big reasons into, you know, not just like the later immigration that had come. We see a lot of West African brothers and sisters start coming here to the UK.
I don't know if it's just me still, but that last piece, I never called that last piece still. It sounded like you might got locked off or something.
I swear. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I might have messed up. But I was saying, like with the West African migration, it was different, and that is a lot down to what actually did happen to a lot of Caribbean countries as well, in terms of regards to high inflation created in the African continent by things like the structural readjustment programs, which took place in a lot of African economies throughout the 60s, I mean the 70s and the 80s, mostly the 80s, which caused a lot of immigration there. Of course, there was immigration from other parts of Africa, which was created through wars, a lot of wars which were fought because of Cold War games, where proxy wars, where one side of the West is back in one side and Russia's back in the other, creating civil wars in different places across Africa and the Caribbean on a whole. But yeah, I think I got a lot to say on this, but I don't want to like hug it all and say it all. So I'll throw it to Shakara and Raven, and then I'll come back.
Yeah, first of all, blessings, family, and I mean greetings to everyone locked in, locked on. Bless up, Raven. Yeah, what's it called? So the first thing I want to say, just to touch on what Scat and Myers kind of started off with, is the fact that anybody who came here, most people who came here prior to the 1960s, from Africa or the Caribbean, would have come here as British citizens, so that whole Windrush generation thing, like them people, they were actual British citizens. There was no such thing as a Jamaican passport, you know what I mean, and them kind of things there. At that time.
One sec. Are you deliberately saying citizens?
No, I didn't say citizens. I said citizens.
What's going on?
What are you doing, Shakira, man?
Sorry, I don't know what happened. That must be the mics. I don't know. Yeah,
because it's the Peter Tushin man still. It's the Peter Tushin.
For real, the Peter Tushin man. So now they can say yeah. But yeah, so yeah, like basically, yeah. So we were all part of this whole construct, called the British Empire, quote unquote, So we came here, or our grandparents came here, as British citizens. So my family being, from Jamaica and Antigua, prior to 1962, everybody came here as under the whole auspices of being a British citizen. This country was considered the mother country. You know what I'm saying? So like this idea of why don't you go back to your country is ridiculous when we look at it from that perspective, but also very feisty and ungrateful if we look at it from the perspective of why our grandparents came over here in the first place. And that was because the so-called mother country was in a desperate situation after the Second World War. And if it wasn't for this so-called migrant population, this nation would not have survived. That's just a reality. You know what I mean? And so and last and finally, well, in fact, no, we're going to come back to this question about why don't you go back to your own country, innit? But yeah, the reality is that what Scattered Minds is talking about, though, in terms of things like the structural adjustment programs and them kind of things there, after Britain got on its feet, so to speak, and the relationship that it fostered with its quote unquote fought via this instrument called the Commonwealth was one that basically did not benefit. There was no Commonwealth, basically. The term Commonwealth is a misnomer because the wealth is not common. The wealth is with the so-called Queen of England and, you know what I mean, the nation of Britain at the expense, yeah, of the nations that our people come from, be it in Africa or the Caribbean. And that is because the economies of our nations have continued to be dominated by Britain and increasingly dominated by America also. Not only that, but whenever we have had governments that even look like they want to do something on behalf of the people, this nation has continued to interfere and support others in the interference of those governments. So we can use this year, for example, is the 40th anniversary of the Grenada Revolution. And Britain and America were instrumental in trying to cause destabilization and intrigue with regards to that particular revolution in Grenada as well. So yeah, I'll leave that there for now.
Yeah, so I'll just jump in. You guys really tackled it quite well, to be honest. But I'll just say, it's more so the expectations I'm going to focus on. Like, many people came from the Caribbean islands. You know, they were really hyped to get here. You know, they were told about, you know,
what time period you talking?
So well, there's different time periods. So when you talk about the masses of Caribbean, the masses you would say built the country, like Shakara was saying. If you're talking about like the African community, you've always had like quite well off African students would come over before that. But generally, if you're talking about masses, you're looking at after the Second War, and it was to literally take skills. So the two topics is there was a wealth of skills that left the Caribbean, which was quite unfortunate for the Caribbean islands. And then there was the expectations of when they came here, they thought they'll be given nice, you know, areas, nice land. And I think one of the first places, I could be wrong, that was populated was Notting Hill. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. And then hence why we had the carnival in Notting Hill. Although today there's not too many people from Caribbean descent there, but when they first came over, that's where they were. So I guess my area of interest really is that as well, as in like the expectations. And then, you know, did it benefit the Caribbean to actually leave? Like the skills that they're there, builders to remain in the Caribbean and build up that economic base there.
Yeah,
Sorry, can I throw something in here? Yeah, I said my family's from Jamaica and Antigua.
Yeah.
Antigua never got independence from Britain until 1981. Yeah, just to put that into perspective, innit? That's what 4 years before I was born, innit?
Yeah.
So up to that time, this place was Antigua was still a colony. Get me? But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So obviously, when it was colonization and all them things, there, Jamaica, that was the main product that was being produced there at the GDP and all of them things that was dependent on the sugarcane and all that.
Sugarcane, yeah, rum.
That's what the country. That's basically what the country was there for. It was to, like in terms of the British Empire and that.
Yeah,
they was using it as a place to grow their sugar to feed their sugar needs.
That's it. And for their frolicking and whatever they wanted to do in their fun in their sun, and a lot of like royals and high upper class British would use the islands in that kind of way. But they were never really developed economically in terms of.
This is what I want to talk about. So I want to focus on the economics, because the reasons why we're leaving and coming to other countries is for economic reasons, and we're looking to make a better life for ourselves and make money.
Yeah.
So I want to review the economic conditions at the time, and even now on it. Like let's try and look at the GDP, what industries are running over there and all of these things, so we can get a better understanding of why man's even leaving there. You get me?
Yeah.
But yeah, at the time it was all the sugar cane and all of them thing there. And I don't know who touched on it still, but when it got turned into the Commonwealth thing, and man got some type of independence. I swear it's like right, like bare sugar fields, bare sugar cane and all them things. That like I don't know if the British started getting their sugar from elsewhere, but basically and banana and all them thing there as well. Banana was another thing that we exported enough.
Yeah.
Banana economy.
But
Yeah,
all of them things there is like I don't know the what's it called, globalization, the free market, and all of these things. It made it so there's other countries was getting subsidized to produce like more bananas than they need. So they got certain mad surpluses, so they can sell them for next to nothing. And obviously, man can't compete with that. And Britain weren't under no obligation to buy their banana and sugar like they've been doing for how many years from Jamaica. You get me? So obviously that's going to contribute to Rod. There's a big part of man's economy is like non-existent anymore. So man have to look elsewhere for work. You get me? So yeah, just to dash that in. You get me?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, if I could pick up on that, like that's 100%. Like everything you said there is 100% fact, and that is a massive part of the reason as to why we're here. And so yeah, like if we have this discussion about like the economies of a lot of Caribbean, I mean I could talk about Jamaica, so I'm from there, but if you guys could talk about any other areas, I know a couple others as well that I might try and talk about, but it'll be good to try and get like a wide view on all the different places that we might have come from as to why we came here and the particular instances and reasons or issues that were created in those countries. So like you're saying, prior to any kind of industrialization anywhere in the world, you know, the British economy itself was heavily dependent on places like Jamaica and the rest of its colonies, where they made a lot of their money, a lot of their wealth from, like you're saying, the sugar, from tobacco, from bananas and all these types of things. And so they kept those economies, especially in the Caribbean. So whereas in India, they started creating certain industries, they started creating certain train routes, even a lot more train routes in places like India and stuff to remove resources around India. In the Caribbean, that was never really the focus. The focus was pretty much we have this this working population who are working for free because we've enslaved them, and we have this land to toil. And you know, growing sugar cane in itself is a very hard thing to do. It's hard and laborious. So it needs constant attention and constant work. And so the actual quantity at which they were producing at was actually like that's what drove up the numbers of Africans who are being taken from the West Coast. And I actually went to a recent talk where they actually showed us a study which showed as you know, as the availability of getting African slaves declined, you might think that the amount of sugar being produced would decline in Jamaica as well, but the amount of sugar actually increases but also the amount of deaths from on slave plantations increase because you see the brutality being driven up. And I don't want to go too much on slavery, but I think it needs to be made clear that British economy was built on that. It was built on pushing and forcing like people to work harder and harder and harder without getting any pay whatsoever in order to, you know, prop up the British economy. So by the time we reach the 18th century now, you know, Jamaica's got one of the highest rates of wealth inequality anywhere in the world, like other than other, you know, islands in the Caribbean and on Africa. But you see that America is like Jamaica is still based pretty much just purely on this agricultural economy. There's not been any move to move it. There has been the building of, I think, at least, or the attempts to build at least one railway, but I think that's the railway is built pretty much to bring all the wealth of the nation to the port so it can be brought back to the UK as quickly as possible. After the period of which Jamaica is no longer, or after which slavery is brought to end, the Jamaicans aren't just a given, like black Jamaicans aren't given land to farm. They're not allowed land. And actually, I think it's in Maypen, but I'm not sure. I can't remember. I think maybe Shakara might have a knowledge. I think or even Raven, but I think it was in Maypen where Jamaicans, I think maybe it might have even been Bogo, I can't remember, where they started trying to grow food on the land because a lot of these white landowners had pretty much stopped using their land since they couldn't use slaves anymore. The land wasn't being worked, but you had a lot of hungry Africans on the land who needed food, but they didn't own any land. And a lot of them were actually massacred and slaughtered for trying to eat food, grow food on land that didn't belong to them. It led to a lot of fights and rebellions. So the actual atmosphere and the circumstance that you have here in Jamaica is one of poverty, one of desperation. And so you can see why people will be looking towards something and somewhere where they could call better. And of course, you have many churches and many missionaries who are coming out here, and the royal propaganda being pushed that, you know, the King of England is your king, this land is your land, etc., etc. And so they're looking towards Britain as that will be our saving grace. And, you know, there's the rumor of the land being paved with gold. So even after, as time goes on, after World War I, you have many Caribbean people actually leave Jamaica, go and fight for Britain in the World War, but they're still not given full citizenship at this point yet. It's only after World War II that full citizenship is given.
I stick up in there because also I want to touch on that as well. You know, the attitude that Jamaicans in particular, obviously, because that's where man's from, innit?
Yeah,
so I don't really know about everywhere else still, but the attitude about Jamaicans and the especially the ones that came over, and the sentiments that they had for England, and how man felt about England. Because obviously people don't know. A lot of people think that man come over here anti, like man didn't rate England or nothing like that. Not like man's trying to beg it or nothing, but compare like how man's like forefathers and that came over here, fam. They like in class in Jamaica, the curriculum and all them things there. Like England was considered the mother country, innit? Like everyone was looking at England like it's like you're saying, the streets are paved with gold, the people are nice, everyone speaks like the Queen, everywhere is nice. People had to come over there and like they was like, wow, this is our country.
Put it this way, yeah. From my understanding, yeah, it was not uncommon for people in our grandparents and great grandparents generation to have a picture of Jesus Christ or the image of Jesus Christ that we are commonly given, yeah, the white Jesus, and King George,
the royal family,
the royal family, yeah, it was not uncommon for that to happen, yeah. And my dad always tells this story of when it comes to my great grandma, how his uncle, my granduncle, who was my great grandmother's son, yeah. But one day came in the house and took down all the pictures, all the European images off the wall, yeah, all the prince and the princess and the white Jesus, and put up some Marcus Garvey and some His Imperial Majesty and I'm kind of thing there, and vex off my great grandmother, yeah, vex off my grandmother. And so he sat down and spoke to her and said, these images are not good for the children and them kind of things there. You know what I'm saying? But that was a common thing, yeah, for our great grandparents and grandparents generation. That's just one idea. Another indication is the most regular footage that we see of when the so-called Windrush landed, yeah, is Calypsonian Lord Kitchener, yeah, singing that song, London, my mother country. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is
you know the mentality. Like, man love the England them time there, you get me? And that's coming from colonization. And to me, that's crazy, fam. It don't make no sense. You get me? But obviously the indoctrination was heavy, fam. It is what it is, regardless for the reasons of it. Man had a big love for England, you get me?
Yeah, they did massively. I'll get back to it in a second, but I'm just gonna share my screen quickly if you allow me, because I just want to quickly take a little intermission break here to show everyone that after this today there is the launch of a new channel. I've been the Constructive Conversations, where my brothers, my sister Marinated Goddess will be hosting and leading that conversation actually. So I think the conversation is going to be, can we create black privilege? So that's going to be like from 9:30. So that'll be pretty much after this show. If you guys can, I want to come in and watch that as well. So yeah, thanks for letting me promote that quickly. But yeah, can we create black privileges now? Yeah, back to our topic at hand.
Now leave that out for a bit. Leave that out for a bit. I just let that's marinating in there. Get me?
All right, calm, cool. Let me get that back up and come and close that.
I was that one as well. Still not gonna lie. But yeah.
You just come in with your fly posting and just rip it straight back down. You get me?
Yeah.
Sorry, content. Yeah, can I just say though that I don't. We talk about these things sometimes, yeah, and I think sometimes we forget like to talk about the fact that not all of that generation was on this colonialism thing. Like some of our grandparents and great grandparents were fighting against colonization. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But obviously,
Yeah,
man, want to go into that as well. But I'm just talking in terms of the ones that came over. Like I said, the reasons for them coming over was it weren't to be on no. It was to help what they considered to be their mother country.
It was to help, and also they face obviously what they thought they would face is not what they faced. So I think one of the areas was Notting Hill that they stayed in. I think that was one of like the hubs of the White Defence League.
Mhm.
So
that's what I want to get into as well. Man's experience coming over now. You get me? So now that we've actually made the journey for the reasons that we've made, like, because like you said, enough of us was fighting in World War II and all of that. Because the call was put out, right? Man need help to defeat them people there. You get me? So enough of us signed up, and then when obviously man came over to help rebuild England after it got bombed out. You get me?
That's true, yeah. But when they came and they did their jobs, then you got like
was the experience
from certain communities, and that's when you saw the start of the White Defence League, and they used to refer to everyone as colored folk, and they wanted to send everyone back to the Caribbean, but they also wanted to send people.
Wait a minute.
Before that,
we say that there was an organization called the White Defence League.
Yeah. Funny enough, if you Google it, if you YouTube it, you might get some documentaries on it. I think.
Yeah.
For real, well, you know about that as well, Shakura.
Yeah. They actually had a building in the headquarters.
Yeah. The White Defence League.
And we say what was there? I didn't know. To all I'm hearing right now is EDL. You get me?
This is what they got a template from.
I didn't know none of that.
I think their stance was similar to the BNP, as in they wanted to send everyone back, but they would, I don't know if they would actually pay you to go back or something, because I know the BNP was willing to pay you and sell your businesses so you can go back to the Africa or Caribbean. But they wanted to get rid of everyone, and it was in Notting Hill it really kicked off.
Yeah, Notting Hill was definitely an interesting thing. I wanted to go. I'll go and get my research up in a second. Just gonna let this marinate up here for a little bit first. But in Notting Hill, what you had, and I think it was quite early on. So the first Caribbean people came here in the well, not the first, but the first arrival of Windrush, the Empire of Windrush. That's the ship that brought the Jamaicans here. Was in like 1948, and that brought around 800,000 Caribbean people around, roughly. I think. No, maybe I think over.
Primarily, though, it was Barbados, Jamaica, and Trinidad. We don't want to miss that, because there's a lot of Asians on that thing.
Definitely, it wasn't just Jamaican, definitely. And I do want to
no one cares about small island people, man. You don't count.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, they all came over on that ship, and then right from the off, like they've been invited to come over, and then the first thing that happens, they get put in some bunkers, isn't it? Like there was nowhere for them. Like people hadn't actually thought about where all these people were gonna go and live, so they get put in some bunkers. Eventually, they do get settled in places like Raven said, Notting Hill was one of the first places, Brixton was one of the first places, and I think Tottenham was one of the first places where they started settling Caribbean communities. Later on, it spread to Willesden as well, Willesden and Halsden, where the Irish community were, and those places saw instant issues more in Notting Hill than anywhere else. And I think so they come here in the 1948s, and by 1955 I believe you have the first Notting Hill riots. So quite soon after the Caribbean community are being here, you get this, and the riots back then, it has to be said, are directly race riots. It's not like the riots we saw in 2011, which was a black person was. It was literally black shops and black houses being targeted by white nationalists, the English Defence League, smashing windows, sometimes burning down properties, arson attacks on occasions, and then the repeat happening on the other hand. So you had black communities going into the white areas and doing it, and because you had this Notting Hill community where people were so close, it created issues, and it created more and more opportunity for a lot of this to happen. So it happened in the 50s, I think it happens again in the 60s, and then again in the 70s. But yeah, I'll go and get my research out. And I do want to say, I'm not sure if it's 800,000 Caribbean people. That does sound a lot to me right now when I'm thinking about it. It might have just been 80, but I will do my research and come back.
Yeah, with Notting Hill, what really happened was basically over the space of about a week, groups of white youths, yeah, and it was organized because some of them were coming from outside because you had cars, yeah, there were reports of cars of white youths coming into Notting Hill and basically populating streets here whereby they knew there wasn't like a strong strong population of black people, but they'll find that one African. And you know, basically, yeah, like grievous bodily harm, fam. You know what I mean? Regular. And what happened was that the police weren't really responding to these attacks. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? There's one report, and I can't remember who reported this now, but of a man being chased into a grocery store, yeah, dragged out, beaten up, and them kind of things there. You know what I'm saying? You know, and this went on for this went on for a week. And what happened was because like it started to be known, you know, black people to basically get in your house, yeah, before 6 p.m. Otherwise, that's you, yeah. And what happened was going and coming home from work, men, fathers, husbands, yeah, started to carry weaponry, yeah, back home to and from work, and would get arrested on the road, yeah, for possession of an offensive weapon because they carried it to protect themselves from these white youths that were aggressing them. You know what I'm saying? And they were and the white men were raping women as well. That's one thing that people don't always talk about. But they were actually raping some of the women then, yeah. So nothing of these things took place. Yeah. Then all of that.
Talk about. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go on.
Also, don't forget to mention about the unity between the White Defense Leaguers and the Teddy Boys. Many of the Teddy Boys were joined forces.
Teddy Boys, the Mods, the Rockers, and the Skinnets. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. And so I'm yeah. Thanks for that, Raven. Can I say that these were gangs, isn't it? Yeah. Let's get it straight, yeah. Yeah. The Teddy Boys, Mods, Rockers, Skinheads were all gangs.
Yeah.
Right, they were gangs. Yeah. So basically, like the point I'm making here is that like our great grandparents and grandparents never came over here with no gangs. So I'm saying like we never came over here with no gangs in it. You get me? That's just like to throw in there. But all of this culminated in the death or the murder of Kelso Cochran, get me, in 1958, and Kelso Cochran is actually from Antigua. You know what I'm saying? Right? What's it called? Sorry, 1959. Sorry, he was killed. Yeah. So obviously the Notting Hill Riots in 1958, August 1958, and Kelso Cochran is killed in 1959. Yeah. And as a result of that, it was Claudia Jones, among others, people like Amy Garvey, who came together. Who were organizing at the time and creating like black media, like the West Indian Gazette and them kind of things there. When they went on to organize the first Notting Hill Carnival in King's Cross, and the theme of that carnival was a people's art is the genesis of their freedom, and the proceeds from it went to paying the legal fees, of some of the man them who were arrested in the so-called Notting Hill race riots. And even that is a misnomer. When you say riot, it looks like it was an attack. Yeah, it was a racial attack. It wasn't a race riot. It was a racial attack. Yeah, against black men, women, and children and their homes and people, right? And them kind of things there. So yeah, madness to go out, fam.
Mad thing. Yeah, I interviewed Ishmael Belgrove about Carnival and the origins of it. He did touch on that story as well. I didn't even know that it started out. That's what I'm saying. Like if it's important that man like keep the line of communication open between the generations to pass on these messages, fam. Car if man was looking at Carnival now, fam, before man got the history of it, man ain't seeing none of its roots in it, fam.
Yeah,
like that, fam. I'm not understanding why it got set up.
Do you know what? Yeah, there's a documentary though. Yeah, on the Notting Hill Race Track. One last thing in it. Yeah, for all my Jamaicans out there. What's it called? There's a documentary on YouTube. And I was playing it for my students the other day, and one brother from Barbados said that basically after a while, black people from other boroughs started to come to Notting Hill, to really basically defend the community and that. And he said in so many words, he said, if anybody took the brunt, of the Notting Hill race riots, so called, it was the Jamaicans that drove in from Brixton. You get me? Yeah, so that Jamaicans were coming up to Notting Hill from Brixton by the carload, yeah, just to, you know what I mean, get in the rumble, fam. You get me, and defend the community and them thing there. So yeah, you know what I mean. You know,
man, been on this thing from 58.
yeah, fam. Yes, fam.
Alright, cool, man. Come we try to tie a bit more closer to the reason I come even start talking about that, which is the why we migrating over here in the first place. You get me? Obviously, these are conditions that man's faced. Why when we came over here, not expecting that, not bringing our arms out, but experiencing it. But what can man do, or what do you feel like man can do? Anything to make the conditions great where man's from, so man don't have to go nowhere. Cause man like the sun, you get me? Man like being in the tropical environment, fam, where it's nice and humid, you get me? So what you feel like man can do? I don't know if man's familiar with the countries where we're coming from, like the politics of what's going on out there, to feel like, I don't know, ain't gonna front, fam. Man's heard some bad stories about returnees going back to Jamaica, you know, and been getting murdered out there and bare things, fam.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I'm gonna let the others talk first, but yeah, I'll come back in. I got some stuff.
Yeah, so what you feel like the man can do to try, like, get an idea of how the economy is working over there, and if man has any type of place in it? Because to me, it don't make no sense, fam. Like, why, like, generations upon generations that are flooding out of these countries as if man can't fix whatever problems there is in those countries. I don't know, fam.
Yeah, this is a side point, but it's relevant to what you just said. Yeah, that one of the things that's not being promoted as widely, although it is being promoted somewhat, is the fact that a lot of the younger generation who were born here are actually returning home to Africa and the Caribbean, like particularly Ghanaians, and I can say this for sure because I've been to Ghana and seen the numbers of people that were born here, of parents from Ghana or grandparents from Ghana that have moved back. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's slower in the Caribbean, although I know a number of people from Barbados, like they're from Barbados and their children have moved back or something like that. But it's happening less with Jamaica. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's an interesting point.
Yeah, all right, cool. So on this point, like there's lots of issues with, like, poverty is the main issue. So what we were talking about there is the first initial wave of immigration from the Caribbean into the UK. And the reason why a lot of them guys left was because they were coming from a country that was run by a colonial government, which really didn't offer many opportunities or job or development for its population or its people. So a lot of them were coming to the UK in the hope of getting jobs and wealth, so they could actually build up back home. And a lot of people, they weren't just coming to the UK, by the way. Like, the UK just made the best pitch at that time. A lot of Caribbean people were going to Canada and Americas during this time. But that was then, and like they like I say, they had that mentality of the roads were paved with gold and so on and so forth. And to some extent, it was a willing migration because they saw themselves as, they were invited and they said, yes, we'll go. Later on, what we see once Jamaica gets independence is, like I said, in many of the other African countries, you had this proxy war situation going on. Now in Jamaica, it never comes to war like it does in Grenada, where there's an invasion. But you do have these two rival political parties, the People's National Party and the Jamaican Labour Party. And the politics that these political parties now have come to represent post-independence, now with people like Buster Manty and Manley at the time, I believe it was. Yeah. And so, yeah. And the politics that they come to represent is the politics of left or right, the European spectrum, the politics of either what was seen as socialism or close to socialism, or as being too close to Russia during the time of a Cold War of Manley's party. And then the politics.
Michael Manley was aligned with Cuba. He was one of his Fidel Castro was one of his heroes.
Yeah, exactly. So because of that,
in front I was PM, like, see that time period there from Daily and all of them things there.
You're repping.
Fam, I was PMP, fam. All the Rastas was rolling with PMP, you know. A certain set of, you know, enough of them bum politics, you hear me? But the ones who was politically minded, I was like, yeah, PMP is trying to make the people them control this island here. Whereas JOP, Edward Seaga and them and there, fam, them man was on CIA business. Bob Marley in one of his tunes, fam. Rasta don't work for no CIA. I knew You knew what time it was, but yeah, finish the story still.
yeah, that's it. That's definitely the case, and I think that's why we should also put out. Sorry, but that whilst like Shaka said was whilst you had those people who were loving the UK and saw it as their home and the streets were paved with gold, you have to understand the reason why that mentality came in, and the power of the king was pushed everywhere across the island of Jamaica to the point that when you did have the rise of the Rastafari community and the Rastafarians coming up and saying, "Bon King George, bon England, Africa is our motherland, Haile Selassie is our king," many of them were thrown into prison, and I think Bustamante even encouraged them to be killed as a sorry, was that Shaka? You confirming me? Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah, 1963 Coral Gardens massacre. Yeah, Bustamante put out the call for the Jamaican Constabulary Force, the police, and the ordinary citizenry of Jamaica to find Rastafari dead or alive. And he said that if those who can't fit in the jail, the cemetery will hold him.
And the morgue hold them. Mad thing. Yeah, I heard that still. Yeah. I knew Baruka always talks about that still.
Yeah, it's a serious thing, fam. It's a big, major atrocity that took place less than a year after Jamaica was made independent.
Which government was that? It was the PNP government.
JLP.
JLP.
Bustamante in the
Okay.
But I think your question was like, what could be done today to help build up the countries in the Caribbean in Africa? Is that right?
Yeah, our home, the countries where our parents coming from, our parents, like, because it's not like this is just a few of us trickling out and just going exploring, looking for a better life or just looking for a change of life. It's like man are fleeing the country. Like, I don't know. Like, I should have done the research. I should have done the research and see what the percentage of people are leaving the country. I might be gassed up, you get me? But it seems like people are desperate to leave the island, you get me?
Yeah, that's across the board in many countries. But I would say one thing that could be, like, I know in Nigeria at the moment, they're building up their IT companies and like offering services across the sea. So you have programmers and developers in Nigeria who and it's kind of what has happened in India as well.
So we saying when I get them Nigerian emails, I should reply to them, yeah.
Definitely do not reply to those ones. Not those ones. Nah, stay away from those ones. But I actually saw a documentary the other day about this, where they're actually building up the infrastructure of the IT community in Nigeria, and I guess what they're going to be doing is similar to what India is kind of doing at the moment. And that's something I support. That's definitely something I support, and that's something that I wouldn't mind pushing over to the Caribbean as well. I've also met a lot of Nigerians who I've worked with in some of the business I've been here, who've come over here and actually done like IT architect work or big data and this kind of stuff and development. And but some of them tell me that one of the problems they have is in some place or many places in Nigeria, like they might not be consistent light. Like the light might turn off, so this is a bit of a problem for the business of any kind of IT business where there's no guarantee that the light's going to be on. I think Akon went over to fix that in some places, didn't
he? Yeah. I'd say another major problem is food self-sufficiency. Right. I don't think any Caribbean island grows enough food to feed itself, which is obviously a major problem. And the major problem with that is concerned is because it's obviously the fact that a lot of the national budget has to be spent on buying food from America and other places. But again, that reality is a deliberate situation. Like it was a reality that was deliberately created.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if you've seen that Life and Death documentary.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, I show me dashing away bare food. You get me? But like I said, that ties back in. That ties back into the how we had to open up our country to a free market.
Yeah,
yeah.
To accept those conditions of the loans that we got from the IMF and all them things there.
Yeah,
and part of that was that all America, true, they can they can subsidize their farmers. The farmers produce more than the country needs, and obviously, if they're selling that to Jamaica, as opposed to the people who's producing it in Jamaica, they can. All they have to see is how much are you selling it in Jamaica for? I can sell it for cheaper than.
Yeah.
They don't have to make hardly any profit, fam. Just enough to make sure that you can't sell your things. You get me?
Yeah.
Man was dashing away milk like it was crazy, fam.
Fam,
It's mad.
they redlined the banana trade and the textiles trade in particular. Yeah, and in fact, think about it, yeah, all of us, yeah, grew up eating chiquita and dole, I don't know how you pronounce that word. It's Spanish, I think. Bananas, yeah. And them bananas, they were produced, yeah, by cheap labor, yeah, from Central America. But they're American companies. I think one of them is based in Switzerland now. Yeah. But basically what happened was there was the existence of those companies, yeah, the British had an agreement with Jamaica to buy bananas from them, yeah. I think it's called the Loam Agreement or something like that. And with the existence of these companies, because America has an inordinate influence over the World Trade Organization, yeah, they basically coerced Britain into buying their bananas and not the Jamaican grown bananas. You know what I'm saying? Because they were using cheap labor from Central America. And so the companies, what was the United Fruit Company became Chiquita, and then there was this Dole company who's related to them in some way, shape, or form as well. Yeah. And so like basically the number, because the trade kind of dried up, the number of Jamaican banana farmers shrunk from 40,000 to something like 3,000. Yeah. In a short space of time. There's more information about how they redlined and got rid of the basically negatively impacted the Jamaican textile industry as well. But it's mad. Like, so this situation was deliberately created. Yeah,
100%. 100%. I just want to point out, and this is at the point.
Once it's scattered, I'm gonna make, because we've got 2 new people on the panel as well still. So after you, I'm gonna make MA come in, and then after MA, I'm gonna make Ziriab come in still.
Yeah, best of
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. All right, cool. I'll go, yeah, and then I'll let them guys come in. Welcome to the newcomers, definitely. Yeah, so I was just going to agree with a lot of what Shaka was saying. I was saying, going to add that this is what we're seeing in terms of like the sets, like the end of the 60s, 70s, and the 80s in terms of the new immigration that was coming into the UK and why we was leaving the Caribbean at that point. Because post-independence, what we got was really was sham independence and sham governments who were pretty much, like I was saying, on this one CIA controlled, one trying to get backing from Cuba and Russia. That side lost. The side that with the CIA backing ultimately won. And actually, what that fighting actually done, what that proxy war between those two groups creates in Jamaica is a lot of what we have in terms of Jamaican posse culture and Jamaican garrison culture, in which you created, some of the first, big Jamaican, what they termed as the Yardie gangs that started immigrating during this time as well, or what they tried to,
shower pussy.
Yeah,
the JLP was the shower man. Then
that was JLP.
What are you screaming over it? It don't make no sense to me still, car. If man knew the history, man would have been Spanglers all day, fam.
100. It would have been
Spanglers, fam. Red Square, they got the Red Square man, them.
But to be fair though, yeah, that because whereas like both sides of that thing, yeah, manipulated the thing in it, like whereas Manley was a serious kind of social whatever guy. Like both sides of that thing, yeah, were manipulating political violence in the country, in it. So it's well known that the both sides of JLP and JLP and PMP were bringing drugs into the country, yeah, and that's when the crack cocaine started to come into Jamaica as well in the 1970s. That's what I'm saying. I remember my uncle talking about sitting on a veranda one time with his uncle and hearing an announcement that a chartered plane, the first chartered plane from Colombia, will be sailing to Jamaica that week or something like that. And he was wondering why did Jamaica need a plane from Colombia direct? You know what I mean? Mad thing. So yeah, you get me. Funny thing.
What you say? Both of them was. That's what I'm saying, fam. Like obviously, I might be indoctrinated or a bit biased towards the PMP from the rhetoric that I was airing.
Yeah.
From Michael Conley and them, especially when I saw the Rastas, them crowding around them, and but basically his argument was raw. It's only true the CIA was interfering in the government, in the politics, and giving guns by the barrel load to the JLP man them.
Yeah.
He had to go and look guns and them thing there from Cuba and wherever he got them from. You get me? But
No,
obviously,
yeah,
I don't
I'm
know
not
about
saying.
no, I don't know how the thing got into it on that side there. You get me?
No, I'm not saying you're wrong, and I'm not even saying people never had good reasons for supporting my man, and I'm not necessarily implicating him particularly. I wouldn't have that information directly on me. What I'm saying is that it was definitely both sides of the coin, innit? If that makes sense, like that manipulated the political violence. You know what I mean?
100.
But yeah,
100. And that's the thing in it. Like I would say, because I'm kind of with you, Leon, on that one on content. Sorry, like I'm kind of like my thing is like I think Michael Manley's offer and Noah Manley's offer to the Jamaican people politically was one that was better for Jamaica as a whole. But what Shakira was saying is true in terms of politics is a dirty game, and when you start getting down into it, your hands can't stay clean either. And so his hands definitely weren't clean all the way. And so they both contributed to the posse culture that was developed in Jamaica throughout in the late 70s going into the 80s and 90s. And so yeah, the immigration that we start seeing then, you know, we see a very shift in Jamaica. So Jamaica had violence, mostly police violence onto the people historically. But there had always been crime or elements of crime in Jamaica because there'd always been such high unemployment rates and high poverty. What we see is a massive escalation of that during that point. And so you do definitely see a lot of immigrants leaving Jamaica because of crime as well as because, mostly because of crime. But you also see people just trying to still get opportunities as well during that period of time, isn't it? Sorry, I won't keep going on anyway. Ziriab and let May Brown come in as well and try to get some other perspectives of other countries and why other people left their country. Okay. But I do want to make it very clear that Western intervention in Jamaica, just like in Grenada as well, plays a massive role in the reasons why people leave. So America's CIA intervention against what would have definitely been a Manley presidency, a prime minister, caused a lot of the issues. So yeah.
Especially the time when it was the Cold War and them thing there. America didn't want no more potential bases for Russia over there. You get me?
100.
Yeah. MA, yeah. You wanna add on, fam?
Yeah, can you not hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, big up. I just touched the conversation just now. I only just reached recently, so I'm trying to understand what going on. On the subject of Jamaica, what I found interesting recently was the I don't know if it was definite news or whatever, but I heard, I think maybe 2 years ago, how the US wanted to make Jamaica a US territory. And I think this was during the end of the Cameron reign, the end of David Cameron's leadership. I remember at that time as well, they were trying to sell off land in England, in the north of England. So I would be interested to see how that develops actually, because really a lot of the Caribbean has become US territories by default anyway. Just the way
and Chinese.
Say again?
And Chinese.
Yeah, definitely. So I always think that if the UK, sorry, the British Empire had have given up their colonies like from the Caribbean, then the US would have swept them up quickly because they're right next door, innit? So I always think in terms of going back to say Jamaica or Dominica, which is where my parents are from, my only worry is always what the United States of America will do, because I think at some point they're gonna want them nations for real, like for real. But yeah, the subject is what is the subject? sorry.
Why we migrate to the UK?
Why we migrate to the UK?
So your parents are Dominican, right? One was Dominican.
Same as you, Raven. Same as you.
There you go. Did you know? This not to slightly change, but did you man's know that the KKK tried to invade Dominica?
When
wow.
No.
But
Tell that story, my G.
Tell that story.
No. It's a different topic, isn't it? But yeah, I think, and I could be wrong. I believe David Duke was involved with it, but I could be wrong. Yeah. I have to get the info on that. That's mad.
Wow,
yeah,
bro.
They wanted to turn Dominica into like the white national state. So they were gonna blow up the parliament and all this kind of stuff. It was mad.
Wow.
Yeah, Dominica, not Dominican Republic, the small island Dominica, Patois speaking Dominica.
Yeah, the Patois. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's mad, you know. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Trade Islands.
It was called Operation Red Dog. There you go.
I'm googling
Yeah,
that right now.
yeah,
Some of them get
Operation Red Dog. So you guys, if you obviously let me not change the subject too much, guys. But yeah, if you guys want in your spare time, look up Operation Red Dog, and they were going to overthrow the government, the Dominican government, and this was in my lifetime, I believe. It's actually a little before, to be honest. Right, a little before my lifetime.
1981.
Yeah.
81,
Yeah, I'm a jump
81.
here, innit?
You get it? So you might didn't even know that our country did try to take it.
Rude boy.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Just quick question. What part of Dominica your family from, Raven?
all over. So Roseau, Forceja, you know,
Okay.
Granby.
That's why. Can you not speak the patois though?
Oh, that's like I said. Yeah, a little bit. Not much though.
Not much,
So
not much.
there, what?
My partner's Dominican as well, innit? So
Oh, love.
yeah.
There's something I want to know as well, which I know it probably isn't true, but someone said that in Sierra Leone they speak the same patois as Saint Lucia and Dominica, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Do you know what, Raven? On
It's
that,
similar.
you know, Shakara, you know, Eric, innit, Grandpa?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was doing classes all last year at the village, innit? And he was doing, he was breaking down. Basically, it's not a written language, innit? The Dominican Creole patois ain't a written language. He, because Saint Lucian and the Saint Lucians speak the same language, and he was trying to codify it. But he was breaking down how I can't quite get the grammatical terms, but how full of African, is the basis is African. Say again?
I don't know if I was the only one, fam. I never heard none of that, you know, fam. Anybody else hearing? Or is it just me one?
I heard this, bro.
Yeah, we are them content.
My mic just blew. Just, I don't know what happened to me still. All right, cool. Same thing.
Look at the Wi-Fi version.
Content, can you hear me now? No.
Yeah, you're good, man. You're good, man.
Okay, do you know what? The volume input keeps going up and down for some reason. I don't know why. Anyway, he was there. In fact, I've got a book about, what's it called? Oh, I'll have to find it. It's the relationship between African and Caribbean Creole languages. It's an interesting book. I'll lend that to you still, even Raven, as well.
Oh, excellent.
But yeah, that's mad about the KKK though, bro.
Yeah, Operation Red Dog, man. Look that up. I think the guy who started Stormfront had some, there's a website called Stormfront, right? I don't know if you guys are aware of this.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
So Stormfront is where most white supremacists would go to just talk about stuff online. The guy who started it, he was also responsible part of the operation as well, I believe. So it was you will never know what it went on.
Who's
Mad?
Yo?
No, I was just saying mad.
Yo, can I take this moment here to just jump in quickly and tell everybody, like up the show. Like if you're in here in the building and you're watching and you're enjoying this, just press like. It ain't hard. Just quickly go down there and do it. Like I'm not gonna hold up the show too much, but in about 5 minutes or so, if I don't see enough lights going there, I might just put a stop to the show until we get some lights going in, man. To get some show. But Ziriab also wanted to jump in. I know he had something to say as well, so I'll let Ziriab take it. Sorry.
Ziriab, the political scientist,
You guys,
I thought Scatter Mine was the politics man still. I want to Ziriab, fam. I said I don't even know if Scatter Mine knows about politics.
No, when I heard Ziriab, but I didn't know if I knew about politics.
He goes in, I can't lie.
You know, like that, fam. I said he's a new political correspondent to COE still.
Whoa.
Hey, man. Hey, no. That's Captain Scarlet's thing. You get me?
Big up Ziriab.
Yeah, don't know, fam. Yo, am I coming through clearly? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I just quickly want to just say 2 points which should thread together a lot of what's been said, because the initial question was, why is it that people from the Caribbean and Africa and other parts of the world why are they in the UK? And so for me, what's been talked about is the economic angle and the military angle, and so there's not much more I can say except for pointing people towards my video on these 2 topics, which is the integrated and non-integrated zones. Because what I'm saying is that from a military point of view, Yeah, there's strategies and plans which are out in the public domain, which we can get our hands onto and see. All right, or does this tally up to reality? All right, cool. So on the military side, we need to look up Thomas Barnett, I think it's called, and yeah, if you look in integrated, non-integrated gap zone countries,
Barnett formula guy.
yeah, Thomas P. Barnett, he formulated this, and it's called the brief in U.S. military circles and that. So anyone who raises to the rank of general gets this brief, gets this presentation, and obviously some of the slides have leaked out as well, and you can see that the whole Caribbean, South America, much of South America, all of Africa, some parts of Eurasia and Far East Asia are all in the non-integrated zones, which means that they're going to be zones of conflict and war, and so on and so forth, which is exactly what we're seeing. And then on the economic front, you've got a situation where the institutions which emanated out of the Second World War, meaning the victors, the US, the UK, the Anglo-American hegemony, alongside with France and Germany and so on and so forth, created institutions such as the UN and the organized Bretton Woods Conference, so that the dollar is the reserve currency. So when you talk about Jamaica being incorporated as a state, that would just be the final paperwork, because economically it's well within the US global financial system and its tentacles. So my point is to say that the other institutions, like in the 70s, like people were talking about the economic crises and the real life, COE mentioned about the documentary on life and death. So that outlines the whole play by the IMF imposing neoliberal policies which negatively affect and impact these developing nations across the world. So my point is to say, instead of looking at them isolated, we can see them together as a coherent plan.
100. Sorry, I was jumping in there quickly because
sorry, I don't, baby was balling in the background, fam. I missed that last part, Ziriam.
Sorry, bro.
I was just making mention to the reference you dropped earlier. Of the
life and death. Yeah, but I know I probably butchered it though, man. So
basically, this is the point. Everything has been covered already by the panel, and you by mentioning that alluded towards the IMF, which is a neo-colonial institution, whereby UK and the old colonial powers have an inordinate say in the institution. And it's funny because these institutions which force developing nations to take on neoliberal policies fly in the face of the developmental model of in recent history, South Korea, Japan, which you have to think about. In the last 50 to 60 years, they've been able to go from rubble to Toyota and Samsung coming out of South Korea, and two of the most developed economies in the world. And you have to think, at the end of the Second World War, like, America constituted about 60% of world GDP. So they were able to dictate the terms and conditions, and that's the reality that we're living in together. So I'll just make a reference to that documentary, which goes into more depth of how the IMF carried out its policies. But more importantly, I was drawing people's attention towards the fact that the military and the economic are part of one coherent strategy.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm sorry, yeah. Like everything you said was like spot on, but I think Content's right to actually draw you in and say, like, because I think we actually do need to cover that more, like in terms of the creation of the Bretton Woods institutions at the end of World War II, and what actually corresponds, several years later with the structural readjustment programs, not just in the Caribbean, but across all of these countries, like you're saying, the places that are marked for war, as it were. And like you're saying, it's not just one like economic strategy, it's a military strategy, it's a strategy of domination of all of these countries by the West. And Jamaica at this point, like in the early 70s, the economy was similar to some of the Asian tigers, like some of the countries you mentioned. Like Jamaica wasn't doing so bad in terms of its attempts to industrialize and its economies. And this is why the CIA and like America played so heavily in the Jamaican elections to make sure Siago got in and to make sure that the policies that he was going to push on was to accept the structural readjustment program, to privatize everything, to sell off masses of Jamaican-owned things, and to allow the free market to take over, and to also take loans. Cool.
I want you to carry on still, but just like this is why I feel man need to be like encourage man's peoples to be more politically aware. You get me? Because I'm talking now. It's kind of the same thing with Obama. You get me? Like everyone's looking at all right, it's a black man. Ray. He's a black president. Let's champion him, and no one ain't really putting him under the microscope and seeing what his actual effect is, like his policies and what he's actually keeping up to get his business practices and all them things there. Same thing with Edward Siaga, fam. I don't know how he's such a hero in Jamaica, you know, fam. Even now I'm talking now, fam. Certain man might slap me in my mouth, you get me? To go Jamaican against him. Because he's exalted. I think he's done a few good things in terms of the music industry and all them things there over there. But
yeah, everything
what you just listed out, fam, is facts, fam. So, and I feel like if the people them knew that, they wouldn't be giving him like he ain't supposed to be getting ratings, fam.
No, Edward Siaga is the devil. Yeah, there's no doubt.
But man's mind is too heavily invested in just entertainment, fam. Just alone. I ain't saying man ain't supposed to enjoy himself, you know, fam, and entertain.
Yeah.
If man ain't studying how the world works, fam, the man's gonna get taken for idiots out here, fam. And like I said, like I feel like these are the reasons how come man's leaving man's own countries, fam. Like man knows what's up in man's own country. Man's supposed to be either fighting for the people like the PMP, fam, who on this thing, trying to give power to the people, fam. You get me? Or it's nothing else, fam. You get me? So yeah, just to highlight that still, I feel man, the political awareness level of our peoples, fam. Yeah. We need to make sure like that's a key thing still. So
I got a question. You think enough of us in the UK and enough of us Jamaican people in the UK and in different parts of the world are making contributions to the politics of Jamaica?
No, of course not. That's why last week, I think it was, or maybe it was last week in it content where you're down at the British Embassy, Jamaican Embassy.
There's about 50 people out there, fam.
It was just about 50 people after
and that's what I'm saying. And it was organized. No disrespect. I big up the sister who pull it on still. It wasn't even organized from a Jamaican or a descendant of Jamaican people.
Yeah. But you know what? To put that into context though, what's it called? Caribbean nations and African nations, as far as I'm aware, have a very terrible record in terms of communicating with their diasporas. There's consistent complaints about the Jamaica embassy over here in terms of like, you know, there's such a strong and community of Jamaicans over here that have no connection with the Jamaica embassy. And the Jamaica embassy doesn't even try to facilitate communication and involvement in the political process, all them kind of things there. Just what I'm saying. But then we have to remember as well that initiatives like the Caribbean Community or CARICOM were also deliberately sabotaged. You see what I'm saying? You know, by that would create strength in the region. There was also an active attempt not only to
explain what CARICOM is for people who don't know.
The Caribbean community was basically an initiative that was really the first person that I know that really spoke about it was Marcus Mosiah Garvey. But it's right. Say again.
Give props to Mosiah every time, man.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But basically, is this initiative basically to bring economic and trade and political unity in the Caribbean to make the region stronger, as a bloc, so to speak. And there's been various attempts to make this happen. None of them have borne fruit, But as well, any kind of revolutionary element, that might spring up among the people them has been deliberately crushed as well. When you look at things like the government of Hugh Shearer, which is the late 60s, early 70s, this is a man who directly banned, books and literature, like the autobiography of Malcolm X, you know what I mean, anything to do with Black Power, or Marcus Garvey and them kind of things there, and facilitating a thing whereby Walter Rodney from Guyana, who was, you know, kind of, you know, very popular in Jamaica at the time, was living in Jamaica, educating people in Jamaica and revolutionizing Jamaican population, was actually banned from coming back into the country.
So Shakara, I think it's important that man highlight these things. Yeah, at the same time, I feel man should expect that. You get me? Like,
For real.
The way you're saying it, I'm not saying that you don't, but I know enough people will air this and be like, raw, like be surprised that man's trying to do things for manself and getting a fight down for it. Like man's supposed to expect that. And like Marcus Garvey said, fam, one of the biggest speeches that I rate him for is when he was like, raw, if man can't do what other races have done for themselves, then you better just lay down and die in it. You race the cowards, you race the good for nothings. You know, like that, fam. So man have to develop methods of how to exist and flourish regardless of any opposition that's formed against man. You get me?
Definitely.
That's what man be putting like the lion's share of man's resources into. You get me? Because man's supposed to expect opposition, fam. Right now, like even with this co-unity spend thing, what Raven's trying to do, man's supposed to expect a fight, fam. Because if man's gonna look after the economics of man's own community, currently the people who's taking care of those, like if you're sleeping on your job, someone else is gonna come do it for you, innit? So other people's doing a job and benefiting off of the quote unquote black pound, because we ain't providing all of the services that we need, that we frequent. You get me? We ain't the ones providing it. So we supposed to expect a fight when we try to take those positions, fam. Because we're boxing food out of other people's mouth who's made it their business to feed us.
Well, you know what? On that point, what I will say is this then. One of the things that the major problems that we have in our own nations, be they Africa or the Caribbean, is the role of the military. Yeah, and I think this kind of ties into with something that Ziriab was saying earlier. Yeah, if you look at the role of the military, in most Western nations, it's external. It faces outward, and deals with external threats. Yeah, in many African Caribbean nations, the military acts like an extension of the police force.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. And so basically, we're not equipped, to address threats from the outside, because the military points inwards, right? And it is often used as a machine against the people. So there is no defense for the people in an environment like that, because the people have to try and defend themselves against the military. You know what I'm saying?
I tell them study Che Guevara, guerrilla warfare, fam. It can be done, you get me? It can be done, you get me? That's what I'm saying, fam.
You know what? I remember a conversation.
What's your take? Yeah, sorry, Emmy. Go. But I want to come back on that Che thing in a sec.
I remember a conversation maybe a year and a half ago. Rasbek is a bunch of us still. Rasbek, Jedi was there, whatever. It was the early days when them not come to the park. And he was talking about whether like we need guns or no, whether we need police and stuff like that. I think it was whose channel was it? It might have been, I can't remember whose channel it was, but and Rasbek was in a way boasted about obviously being in the Gambia and how you're able to chat like just two brothers with the military and that, and how they were like friendly and walking man around or whatever. But the fact that they had guns, and the guns are pointed at their own people. I'm glad you brought that up, Shakara, because anywhere in the world that you find, what did I call it? I think I called it armed pacification, innit? Anywhere in the world that you find that, it's a problem. It means that there's enough of the population who have a problem with the status quo, no matter what it is.
Definitely. And this is why Grenada is so important, because man's agreeing, with what content just said, But like, why I bring these things up is because it's not like man them were trying to defend themselves, innit? You see what I'm saying? Like in Grenada, there was a situation whereby the government actually actively armed the people to defend the nation. Yeah, they had barracks and them kind of things there, and gun storages, like people's gun storages, whereby anything they go on, people them can go unlock the thing, take out the gun them and defend the people them, innit? You see what I'm saying? And things still went a certain way. Yeah. And, you know what I'm saying? We just got to learn these lessons of history, innit? Is the point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's why I also want to jump on that point, like I said, the shape thing is because guerrilla warfare definitely is one thing. But when
everyone else mute your mic, man. I think it's you, Shakara, still bare echo.
It might be me. That's me. Sorry, that was me actually.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Is that okay?
My bad. Same way though. If you ain't speaking, mute your mic. I beg you.
Real talk. But yeah, I think what do you call it? Yeah, like winning the military over and actually winning generals from the military, like because Cuba they done the guerrilla welfare thing, yeah, but they also had defectors from the Cuban army come over and join them, and so winning them over to your ideology is definitely massively important in a place like the Caribbean and Africa.
Yeah, that's why man has to be clean. Man have to be clean and righteous, fam. So man have to be clean and righteous. You get me? When the hearts and minds out here, and not only that, man have to be serious, fam. Man can't be out here skylarking, like in the public, skylarking, fam.
Never that.
Be showing yourself to be a clown. You get me? Because man ain't gonna take you serious. Man gonna be like, right, you got a good message, but you don't even believe yourself, fam. So I ain't gonna invest in, like that, fam.
Definitely.
Man have to stay on, like Raven says, fam. Man have to stay on. That's the reason I come and highlight anytime I see you fuck up, Raven. I stay on code, fam. If I see Raven go off code, then all of humanity is lost hope, fam. That's what it is. That's what it is. I hold man to high standards, you get me? Because no man can deliver, fam. Serious results, you get me?
Right. But this kind of answers the question though about why don't we go back to our own country? The point that's being made, yeah, is that when Britain and America and the whole of Europe stop fasting in Africa and the Caribbean, like when they stop doing that, then they have an argument to make. Yeah, the people that say these statements, tell your people them and campaign your government to come out of Africa and the Caribbean before you come and tell me about why not I go back to my own country and things. You get me? If it's so terrible over here.
100. I think that kind of. I mean, I was going to say. I think that kind of almost brings that whole debate into an end, because it sums out quite nicely in terms of why we're over here and the reasons how you could get rid of us if you really wanted us to go to the the quote unquote indigenous British population, who sometimes, not all of them, but sometimes have that view of get out of our country kind of thing. It's just an overview of why we're here in the first place, isn't it? It's just
I say even just a quick one still, like because someone said in the comments, I think it was Rajiv still, the black hatted guy, he asked the panel if the reason man's asking this question is in response to people saying why you in this country, and obviously that's in my mind as well when I thought of the question, but that weren't the reason for me asking the question. That's just something I thought people might think that I'm asking for that reason. They ain't the reason, man. Like I don't feel like man's obligated to answer to anybody that I don't feel has got my best interest at heart, or because they might be asking a genuine question, innit? And if I believe you're a sincere person and you're asking just out of genuine curiosity, then I'll give you an answer. You get me? But that ain't like that's not what motivated me to ask this question. You get me? As I said, fam, when man was growing up younger, fam, always used to feel like man's not always still, but there become a time, especially because I used to go to Jamaica enough when I was a youth. You get me? There become a time when I was like, right, how come man's in England and not in Jamaica? I used to just wonder, because I was like, right, all my peoples is in Jamaica, fam. That's when I look left and right, and all I'm seeing is people that look like me, fam. So why even air? You get me? Man used to just wonder, fam. So obviously, man get to find out how the world start working and all them things, their finances and rare. And obviously, then man had to put the question out there. You get me?
That's the question.
That's what it is. Yeah. Go on.
Is there more that we should be doing right about now, to like try to overcome the difficulties of the present moment and the kind of things there, in terms of connecting and building up our back home nations as they are at the moment? Like, what more can we be doing at the moment?
Yo, can I answer that quickly? Just in terms of, because I think when we're talking about the Caribbean, each island has its own struggles and its own unique opportunities as well. So going back to Dominica, Dominica ain't really a conflict island like that. You know what I mean? It's not. It has its problems, but it's not really a conflict island. So there's bare opportunities. Like, we've got land. My great grand built up her house on a piece of land. My grandma let it rot. So now there's land there, but there's nothing on there, and we need to be building that up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, go on.
But also understanding the nature of the island you're in. So, for example, as you know, Dominica was hit, of hurricane not too long ago, and I've been sending things back to the family and trying to support. But I think that's the thing as well. Like, is the roofing and the housing sufficient? Because if every time you build up something, the hurricane takes it away, then there needs to be a different way of doing things. He agreed. Young one agreed. Yeah.
No, you're right, Raven. And like my granddad, yeah, he's actually a architect. So he's built God knows how many yards in Boston and all around the place. Yet his roof still came off.
You get me?
Yeah, his roof still come off. But you're right. I think, do you know what it is? It's just we definitely need to be applying our skill sets to the Caribbean where we can. You know what I mean? I don't think there's any excuse to not be doing that. And I think the argument to say, well, it's not an argument, but the decision of where you place your money, where you put your money and your resources, whether it's on the continent of Africa or in the Caribbean. And this goes back to one of the conversations you man were having at Speaker's Corner with, I can't remember who it was, one brother who was asking why Africans don't go and invest in the Caribbean.
Yeah, I know you're talking about. Yeah,
that one. I think was a valid question, and I'm happy that conversation was had. But I think the Caribbean definitely. Yeah, it won't take much as well, to be honest. Like I know, let me tell you a mad story. Yeah, I used to mentor this kid, right? In Holland Park. It's when I had no money. I quit my job. I said I had enough, and I met this brer in It's a little side note. I met this brer in Curry's, and he basically, to cut a long story short, he wanted me to mentor his son. Now he's Indian, yeah, and he's an investment banker, made loads of money, whatever. They were still US citizens anyway. A few years down the line, he comes to me and he says, "Oh, can you do me a favor?" And I'm not proud of this, yeah, so don't cuss me. But he said, "Oh, can you do me a favor?" I'm like, "Oh, what is it?" He's like, "Okay, we've got X amount of money in an account in the United States, and they're asking for tax on that money." So he asked me to give a reference to his son, so his son could get a Dominican passport, bro. And he got it. And so I know.
Yeah.
But my plan was to okay that, and because he's got something like £800,000 in the Dominican bank now, to now use that and put him in a position where, okay, you got the money in there, can we use it for something? And I just think we need to be doing a lot more. That question, the answer is yes. It has to be yes. Definitely yes. 100% yes.
Yeah.
I just want to say that in doing that, we're going to have to challenge our governments a lot more. I'll give you an example of why, yeah. I've got an uncle, yeah, my dad's wife's brother, yeah, who he is a university lecturer, yeah. And so he wanted to go out to Jamaica and lecture in Jamaica, University of the West Indies, yeah. And in doing so, he got through the application process, so on and so forth, went for the interview, and they loved him. But because of the University of the West Indies relationship, yeah, to this country, he had to get an okay from a professor at the University of Liverpool, yeah, to get a job at the Universities of the West Indies in Jamaica, yeah. Just so happened that he actually attended the University of Liverpool, and the guy who had to get the okay from was a lecturer, a professor that he had before that didn't like him, so he never got the job, yeah. But the point is that even our education system is so wrapped up with Britain that when we try to go back to benefit our people, and we still got to go through Britain. Mad thing. So in order to stop that, we're going to have to challenge our governments to a large degree in terms of allowing us to be able to do things, yeah, and better our nations in that kind of way.
What nation?
Sorry.
So what Caribbean nations would you say that applies to though? Because we can't be general all the time.
Yeah, true. There's some Caribbean islands that might be better, more supportive of their citizens than others. But I think in general, an attitude of challenging your government is healthy. Your government is there to represent you, so you should always be challenging them to make sure that they're representing you and they're doing a good job of it. Do you know what I mean? I think sometimes we get laid back and think the government are in charge, when really it's the people who are supposed to be in charge. And we in the diaspora, who have certain amounts of wealth and money and who are sending money back to that continent, have a massive amount of influence that if only we learn to wield it a bit better. And I think that's what the point Shakira is getting across, is that the reality is, even though we have this money, a lot of these governments are not looking to us as the first port of call, and they're giving opportunities to other peoples and other communities rather than working with us directly. And
you're gone.
Sorry,
You're coming after. Go on.
Okay, yeah. But I wanted to, oh man, what was I gonna say? The problem is, I think like we should definitely be paying. Like, obviously, when I went to university, I studied politics, and I went to the African Caribbean Society. I was kind of like hoping that we'd be able to do something where we'd be focused on the Caribbean politics and back home, but it had nothing to do with that. The African Caribbean Society, it was all about like fashion shows and partying and culture. And I think sometimes we pay a little bit too much attention to our cultural aspect and maybe not enough to our political aspects. And I think it would be very important for brothers like Shakara, myself, some of the Speakers Corner people, even content, if we could actually start infiltrating some of these African Caribbean societies and universities to give talks and to work with some of those students, because when I was at university, a lot of the, say, Palestinian society or a lot of those societies on that side that would be a part of what I would join, they were doing a lot more politically active things, and they were doing a lot more in terms of funding campaigns back home or even taking trips to go back. And the reality is universities have certain amounts of funds that they give to these societies, which they can actually spend and actually circulate that money around the community. So yeah, I think that's one way we could actually look at like getting up to date with Caribbean politics and making a change back home.
I think also understanding the big wants is important as well. So getting a list from each nation of what is that the governments most want, like help with what kind of infrastructure. Because I'm aware, like when I spoke to many people from Eritrea and Ethiopia, there are many of their citizens who are in England, America, who send money, like their wages every month. They send money back home. So this might be one initiative if what you're sending back home for is something that you deem worthy, whatever. So this is what the talk. And the funny thing is, though, a lot of the prime ministers and that of the West Indies actually on Twitter, and we've probably got more followers than them, so it might be quite easy to actually contact them directly. I don't know.
You just do
that. not to be dark in that. Not to be dark. I'm just saying that.
No, it's true. It's true. 100%. Like there are a lot of us out there who do have big followings, not necessarily there's and if you send a tweet, the right tweet to the right person with the right amount of retweets, and just plan tweet. If we all say, yo, tomorrow we're going to send a tweet at this time, I need you to retweet it, I need you to bang out this hashtag, we could get the attention of a lot of these politicians and force them to have to respond.
Easy. Easily, without a problem. I think that, I think some of the Caribbean governments are as fickle or can become as fickle as someone like flipping Trump, bro. Honestly, I believe that. When you're from the UK, or you're born in UK, and you have a certain amount of cachet in it, a certain amount of currency to then use, and I think we definitely need to be using that, bro.
Yeah, I agree. No, I do agree. But then once again, there is this kind of like unity idea, and like some nations are actually much more unified in actually like pushing their mind together to do certain activities. So I think one of the things I'm trying to do now is culturally train us as a collective to think that way. And that's why like Shaka was talking about this and Leon, this co-unity spend idea is definitely something that is part of the training process of us thinking in that way. We're going out looking to fix things.
But this is what I want to emphasize as well in terms of responsibility from the government to reach out to us.
Yeah.
Rather than us reaching out to them. I feel like the people need to become organized and do as much as we can for ourselves, and then I think it will just be they'll just come to us, fam, because like you have to go through us, innit? Where we doing the most for ourselves. Like, what is the purpose of a government, fam, if not to govern disorganized people? So when the people are organized, there's not really that much need for them, innit?
100. And if we as a block in the diaspora start working like that and creating like cooperatives and being able to buy up things in the Caribbean over the people who are currently buying up things in the Caribbean, the government would have no choice and they might actually want to work with some of us as opposed to some of the others who they're currently working with. So we definitely have to, like I say, build ourselves up so we're in a position where they will come and approach us, and we could choose between politicians and put our people in place if necessary.
That's it, man.
I got a good example of this here. There's a brother by the name of Michael Duncan. He's actually the President General of the UNIA at the moment, but he's from Jamaica, lives in New York here, and he amassed he got together a group here of restaurant owners in New York, African Caribbean restaurant owners in New York, and they have a warehouse, whereby they basically he's got them all in a collective, whereby they buy their own produce, so they buy produce from from this warehouse, but the warehouse basically ships in, Yaman Banana and thing there, produce from Jamaica, so he's doing business directly with Jamaican farmers to import their goods and sell them to a conglomerate of I should say a cooperative of restaurant owners. So I'm saying, so the point being is that if we could cut out the middleman and get some collective kind of cooperatives going, we can buy in produce from our own people, but then we've got to be in business over here to be doing that, and we're not in business as much as we should be to make the most of them kind of things there. So it's just an example of the thing that we can do.
Big up, baby. Big up, baby.
Yes, big love to the baby, man.
All right, so shall we jump to the next topic, or are we gonna?
Yeah. I was gonna say still, but before we do, Ziriab, I don't know if you can give it a nice summarization of the reasons for the migration, and then we go into the next topic.
Okay.
Yeah,
I might be putting a lot of responsibility on you still, but you're the
So basically, it's a two-pronged approach. We're looking at the military aspect and we're looking at the economic aspect. The military aspect is maintained through garrisons, or in the modern parlance, bases, and we have drone bases across Africa. We have a reconquest of Africa by the Anglo-Americans through Africa, and and that includes the Caribbean area as well. And then you also have the economic angle, which is executed by these neo-colonial institutions such as the IMF and the World Bank, the World Trade Organization, and so on and so forth, which imposes a neoliberal policy on developing countries, which stands in contrast to how those developed countries reached their state of development. So there's a two-pronged approach which causes misery, a state of war, and economic destruction in these lands from which people migrate to the so-called West.
There you go.
I respect my brother. Saying nothing. Cool. We're gonna go into the next subject. I'm gonna let Raven introduce it this time. I fucked it up last time. Pardon me for anyone who's listening with children.
Yeah, gotta have code, bro. Yeah.
No. There's no my code though. There's no my code. My code is words. Children, learn this, children. Cause we have to tell the children the truth still. Words are just a sound that your mouth makes with the intention of communicating an idea. So you can say anything, children. Yeah. Just tell your parent. Just question everything. Tell your parents that you're trying to learn things, innit? You want to learn how the world works still. So we have to explore what everything is. You get me? Shouldn't really be shy on no words still. But yeah, that's my thing. That's content's thing. Blame content.
Content
thing, really.
There we go. Yeah, so we were gonna change the word from should do, and what it comes down to is should or do black people get group blamed for activity. So like, is it right or not right? Does it happen that black people get blamed for the actions of one? All right. So obviously this comes from I'm forgetting the brother's name now from Taken now. What's his name? Jump in. What's the brother's name there? The tall Scottish brother.
Neeson.
Liam Neeson.
Is he Scottish? He's Scottish, right?
Irish, no? I don't know, man.
Northern Ireland, I think, yeah.
Oh, Northern Ireland. Okay, so shame on me. Yeah, so if you guys weren't aware, Liam Neeson, back in the day, unfortunately, one of his friends was sexually abused by a black gentleman. And when he found this out, he was walking down the streets of Northern Ireland looking to start a fight with any black person to avenge the honor of his friend. So is this the correct way? Does this go on, and should it go on? This is what we want to talk about. The psychology behind this reasoning. So what are your thoughts on it, guys?
Sorry, could you just? I'm real.
Yeah. So sorry, I'll try to answer that. Maybe you'll get the question from our answer, Ma. Sorry. I think it definitely does go on, and I think Liam Neeson exposed that. And what I'm most disappointed about in terms of this coming out regarding Liam Neeson is the poor quality journalism. Like I felt like the journalists got shell shocked, and they didn't pursue the line of questioning any further. They just kind of like laid back. It's kind of like my question would be to him directly is I want to know if he thought it was like why the first question he asked was about the race, who was it, and if it was a white person, would that have been okay then? Would it be okay, you got raped by a white person, that's calm, it's good, like carry on with my day then? Like was it specifically, because it seemed to me the motivation specifically was around about it being a black person, and I would be also interested to know if he still holds any of those motivations today, and whether his question and his conversation was specifically just about revenge, or whether he was remorseful about his racism in that revenge as well. Yeah, so I mean that on Liam Neeson. On the general topic on black people being blamed for things on a whole, it definitely has happened historically. We've seen that. I mean, we talked earlier about the Notting Hill race riots, and I think one of them was an argument between part of what started in 1958 was an argument between a black man and his white wife outside Latimer Road train station, and a group of white kids saw this argument between the black man and white wife, and like not just attacked him, but then went on and attacked several other black people that same day, that same night. So it was definitely something that has happened throughout history and continues to happen now. Like, what the reason for it is, there's underlying reason. There's many, but I'll let someone else answer the question first before I get into the reasons.
Yeah. So if do we think this is something that happens quite a lot, and if it does, what is the psychology behind that? What do you, could it be? And stop me if I'm wrong. That already there is some kind of strong dislike or strong hatred towards the idea of a particular group, and you're merely waiting for any excuse to just lash out. Could there be any hints of that?
I would say 100%. I would say 100%. You see that playing out in the United States daily, don't you? You see that a lot. Do you think are we thinking that it kind of falls on us more than any other group as well? Yeah.
Well, here's what it is. I think in all communities you're going to find it, but there might be certain communities that do it more, and there might be certain communities that are more victim towards it.
Or even if there's a hint of a willingness to look for any excuse to express what's already inside them, like they're just looking for an excuse to get it out.
Yeah.
How what are the signs that point to that direction?
I think from what I've seen. Yeah, from what I've seen from other people, it's almost like let's use Speaker's Corner for example. Like sometimes people come to Speaker's Corner and they're really frustrated with either certain groups or certain individuals. And something I've noticed is sometimes someone will be talking and then someone will jump in directly sharp and almost mishear what the person says, but they're so triggered that anything they think could even be potentially of an insultive nature, they've already gone down that road. And I have seen that quite a bit in Speaker's Corner. And I think that definitely goes on if you really have suspicions or a dislike towards group. So we were saying earlier that you had the white defense
negative prejudice.
Yeah. So we were saying earlier that early back in the 50s you had the White Defense League, and they wanted black people out of the country. So like I said, if they see a white man, a white black person arguing with a white lady, whatever, they're in on it straight away. Do you know what I mean? So I have seen this happen quite a bit to many black people, and you might even argue historically the media might have represent that kind of bias historically, and then that might have been a contributing factor to why people might think a certain way.
Well, when you think of the no Irish, no dogs, no blacks,
yeah, and this is
that's blatant. That's the manifestation of paranoia before you've even met a black person more time.
Yeah, I hear that. And the irony is Liam Neeson is from Ireland, right? So he should kind of know better in that sense, isn't it? But then not to change the topic. Sometimes when you have oppressed groups, you do see like a division. where you have this concept where it's like we're being oppressed by this superior power to us. So the best thing to do is to appeal to that superior power rather than unite with the other oppressed to take that down.
Yeah.
Which is a very interesting way to deal with oppression.
Yo, someone asked the question on the comment section, which is, if we hear that a black man is shot, would we ask if the person is white, like the officer?
No. Well, I mean, if we hear what
And if so, then is it not the same thing?
Well, it's like this. If you're saying if a person is shot, it's a person shot by the police. It was, I didn't hear it correct.
No, the question was that when we hear about a shooting that occurs that involves a black person by the police, wherever it may be, do we ask the question, was it a white police officer?
I don't think I've ever heard anyone ever ask that question.
Never in my life.
I think majority of the time, like people are just more vexed about the person being shot by the police, and they're also more worried or more concerned about the cleanup operation and the way the police are handling the investigation into whether this was quote unquote a lawful killing, as they like to say, or whether it was a direct, a murder, which a lot of them seem to be. Do you know what I mean?
What I want to look into is if the premise is what was you saying earlier before even that there might be a willingness to express the prejudice that they have inside them or something.
Yeah. It's literally excuse.
Not to be an apologist for anyone's prejudice, but where would you say, like, if we're looking for solutions, if that's the case, where would you say that prejudice comes from?
I think it has to be a given narrative, isn't it? Like I'm not too familiar. So in the case of Liam Neeson, I'm not too sure how Northern Ireland was there. But what I do know is there was a war going on. So the fact that he actually knows about the whole black dynamic is interesting, right? But I think, I don't know. I have to say that literally, when you talk about interactions between black people and non-black people, the history of colonization and slavery plays a very big part in how people view other humans. Like it's night and day. And I think as long as you're aware of that dynamic, there's always a high chance that if you have been identified as non-black or as a white person, then there is a likelihood that you might have a great mistrust or a dislike for the victims of the slave trade or colonization. I just seen what I see. It's like you're not getting any narrative of power. You're getting a narrative of domination. Now, some might argue, well, hold on. If a human being sees collective of people being dominated, shouldn't you actually like feel for them and try to be more so on their side? But we're seeing it historically. Something has happened where that isn't the case. Where the dominated, it's almost like, they are worthy of being dominated.
I think it's a survival thing. I think
maybe
those non-black people see the game as a game of survival. They feel like their survival chances are increased by always kind of pointing the finger and saying these guys are less than us. As long as the heat is on these guys, I'll be all right, innit? That's what I see.
You've actually brought something up which I think Francis Cress Welsing jumped in quite a lot, and it's about genetic survival. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because when I was looking at a lot of documentaries about white flight and why certain people definitely didn't want to integrate with black people, and what it came down to is they actually didn't mind, like, for a certain point, being around and even going to the same schools. But they said ultimately where it's going to end up is our sons and daughters marrying your sons and daughters. And what Francis Cress Welsing talks about is the fear that if a white person was to breed with a non-white person or a black person, then the white person ceases to exist for the offspring. Now, with the Liam Neeson situation, it's interesting that this interaction was sadly in the form of a rape. And I do wonder if that in some ways is also connected to it, where you have a black person forcefully intimate with a non-black person, and what does that bring up in Liam Nielsen? You see,
It's mad though, because in all of these things you have a bit of a what do you call it? There's an irony in it. There's an irony in, not an irony, but there's like a flip side to it, because you could have certain people like Gary Google, for example, who will say that non-black people or white people are deliberately trying to breed with black people for their own survival, for their own genetic survival, to have more melanin, etc., etc., etc. So I think, yeah, it does help to look at the other side of the coin in this sense, because that's a nice theory. That's a nice theory, but how true is, I mean, yeah, maybe subconsciously on some level in his DNA, maybe Liam Neeson is thinking that his whole existence is at threat. And in fact, literally as well, actually, literally. I think, yeah. I can agree with that.
well, I don't know. That's the thing. That's why these are the type of conversations I would ask. Like, you know, you got to understand that when you have I'm not saying Liam Neeson subscribes to this, but when you have a person who doesn't want people who they identify as their women to be with the other, yeah, it's like there has to be a reason behind it. Yeah, there has to be a reason, like a end source reason, right? And I think Frances Cross Wilson, I think that's what she tries to identify. You know, so these are just something I'm throwing out there. That, you know, when you talk about the history of why certain people might distrust other people, but not to change the topic, because I was going to kind of spread onto this as well. But another thing I wanted to cover was the reaction from the black community, and more so the football player John Barnes and his behavior towards Liam Nielsen after the event. I don't know if you guys saw it, but John Barnes said that Liam Neeson deserves a medal for coming out and telling the truth. And you know, and for me, my only issue with John Barnes was the supreme passion he had, and if you can actually check the video, for me it's very entertaining. But it was the passion to jump on TV and cause that kind of semi-controversy and say that he deserves a medal for saying this. So
sorry, Shaka. Oh, no, sorry. With John Barnes, yeah, I think he's equally as passionate about Black matters as he is about the idea that Black prosperity or Black liberation or whatever it may be is tied to being friends with white people. That's why I believe that he could display, 1 minute he's displaying this thing for Raheem Sterling, and the next minute he's displaying an equal amount of passion for Liam Neeson, because he's a Black liberal, essentially. You know what I mean?
I hear that.
I'd say so.
Wait, away and aside from identity politics here, what about the fact there is well, let me ask the question instead of supposing as a fact. Would you agree that there's a possibility we can educate not only this generation but the generations that are coming up after we've kind of located the chinks in the armor, so to speak, or kind of clocked onto the plots? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's no essence of the system which is kind of self-replicating, and from when you clock the biological imperatives, then surely there comes a point in time where you think, if we do two things, there's no guarantee that this system has to perpetuate.
So what was the question, brother? Sorry, just help me.
So I'm saying the question is, would you agree that there's a possibility that through education, this generation and the generations that are coming up afterwards can be rid of a skewed perspective, which is very much like ostrich in the sun?
You know what? I think I get the question, yeah, but I'm going to answer it in a weird way. It is essential, for the sake of maintaining the system as we know it, yeah, to collectivize Black people when it comes to criminality, honestly dividing us when it comes to like liberation, yeah. So when it comes to things like rape, it's easy for the society that we live in to see Black men collectively as rapists perpetrate rape against another individual. Yeah. But as we've been seeing, yeah, with a lot of the conversations that we've been having at Speaker's Corner and the comments on the videos, the content over everything and things like that, as soon as we start talking about unity and whatever, people say, well, Africa's such a big continent and all black culture is not the same. And you know what I mean? The same arguments that they're using, they don't seem to be able to use when it comes to things like rape. You know what I'm saying? So I would answer the question by saying no, because the system as we know it is really it requires this ironic dichotomy to exist for it to sustain itself and for us to play for us to be in a position whereby we are constantly trying to prove ourselves to the society in which we live so that we don't rebel against it.
Cool. Your connection might be slightly. We heard you, but it might be a bit jumpy. But that might be me, Shaka. So just so you know.
Okay. Did anybody else hear that?
Yeah, a little bit jumpy. A little bit at the start.
56K.
Yeah, I was gonna say big up to everybody. I gotta jump out now, but it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. And like, yeah, it's big conversation. Big up to Content for hosting this corner online. Look forward to doing this again and more often. And hopefully see you, man, at the park again. Definitely Sunday. And yeah, man, just big up to the conversation. Yeah, it's been good vibes and keep it going. I'm gonna be over. I've been promoting the whole show, so I don't need to promote it again. But next half an hour or so.
One more time, fam. Pull it one more time, fam.
Yeah, definitely. Big up, man. Next half an hour, so I'm gonna be over on constructive conversations. Just tie that into YouTube. There's a YouTube channel just starting up this today, basically. And the first conversation is how can we create Black excellence? And yeah, so it's really targeted at the Black community. And yeah, so that talk will be the conversation happening at 9:30 possibly. So yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll try to end by then. So
yeah.
So we can support
put the link in the chat as well, because like enough times when you start a new channel, even when you type in a name, it don't come up all the time, fam. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I will drop that before I go for sure. Thank you for that, and big up and respect. Yeah, safe.
Big echo then.
Big echo. Yeah, man. Yeah, for real, man's gonna try wrap it up. The time they can migrate over to then support the new chat. You get me?
Definitely, yeah. You also sound like a robot for a minute there, but that just might be.
Okay. I don't know if it's just you still. I don't know.
It might be just me there, fair enough. All right, cool. So where were we? So yeah. So
he said Shakra's getting boxed up with a pan and
boy, the robot's infiltrated.
You don't have that. Oh my days. You don't have that.
You're boxed up with a frying pan. What are you saying? You're all right over there?
He's trying to make some.
Cool.
Trying to make some cereal, yeah. Yeah, man.
So in regards to should the entire Black community be responsible for the actions of one? I think, I think. Well, I would say no. Obviously not.
You say should we feel responsible or should we be responsible?
Well, I think both words actually take it to an interesting conversation. Really, should we? Because some of you might disagree, but I know historically there used to be a time when there'll be a crime on TV, and many of when people watching it, the Black people in the room would always hope it wasn't a Black person. You know, they'll hope that please don't say it's a Black guy did that.
You know what, Raven? I reckon the day when all Black people feel responsible for a crime committed by a Black person will be a day of progress. I think that's how I feel about it. I think it's a lot to ask for. I think it's unrealistic to expect every Black person to feel responsible for the actions of one. But I think that will show a unity that we're all kind of really trying to work towards if one day we all do feel responsible, wouldn't it?
Agreed.
But I think when back in the days when people would hope it wasn't a Black person, it was more so because they probably felt that there's going to be group blame. So now when I walk down the street, someone's gonna think, am I also committing the same act?
Is group blame in this is complicated, you know, because then in one way you could say, is group blame from outsiders a positive? Like, will it be, you know what I mean? Is it about what people think from the outside, or is it about what we think of ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between feeling collective shame in the eyes of a quote unquote dominant or oppressive minority and feeling collective responsibility for each other and ourselves.
Definitely.
I think there's a difference between those two things. As long as it is motivated by collective responsibility, then it's positive and can be used in productive ways. If it's the other thing, then it's negative and it's really just perpetuating oppression.
Yeah, 100%.
And one sec. Everyone, I pinned the link to the next channel where the next video is going to start from in the comment section, not in the live chat, because the live chat obviously keeps on going, so you'll miss it. It's pinned in the actual comment section of this video. So just log over to there real quick and just subscribe. So get ready when this one done, you can just jump straight over there. You get me?
So you put in the comment section, yeah? You mean in the info bit of the comment section?
In the comment section, it's the pinned as the top comment.
Oh, let me check.
Obviously, there's the live comments, and then there's the comments that stay there all the time, innit?
Yeah. I can't see it. Oh, you know what? My machine blocks that, innit? Damn. All right, let me find that on my PC. Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, it's there, man.
All right. Good. That's why I like to see this kind of support is what we're definitely talking about.
Yeah. You guys, the idea of I don't know what you call it again, but the everyone
unity spend.
Yo, that's genius, bro. You man, biggest respect for that. That's a really, really good idea.
Yeah, respect. That's my idea, still respect.
Content, by the way. So,
I'm ramping. It's Ravens.
Content. I met little side note. I met, what's his name? I met Robin Travis today, innit? You know Robin Travis?
I might know him by a different name.
Robin Travis. He wrote the book.
The Streets.
Prisoner to the Streets. That's it. He said,
yeah. I bucked him at one of the meetings them, and I can't remember which one still. I think it was the King's Peace Treaty or something like that.
Yeah.
I wanted to give him an interview, man. He said they don't do much interviews though still, but once he starts talking, fam, he gets the fire in him and he's gone, you know.
I tell you, bro, it was an hour of I was captivated, bro. He came to do a talk at my college, innit, where I work.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal, man. He's phenomenal. Got nothing but respect for the guy.
Hey, yo, anytime it's something like that, fam, hit me up early, man, and let me roll through with my cameraman.
Yeah. Don't know.
Yeah, all right, fam, don't know. Respect.
Hey, yeah, where are we? Yeah, we're talking about the values of collective shame or collective responsibility, I should say. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's kind of connected to the whole sense that, you know, back say in America when they were segregated, it kind of forced people to actually sort their own issues out, right? And I guess when they became integrated, they kind of let go of a lot of the economic responsibilities that they had. Yeah. So, I mean, how should we treat people like John Barnes? I'm not saying what he did was good or bad, but how should the community react to John Barnes?
To be fair, so John Barnes here has said some pretty useful things on the racism front. In relation to football, I think he's a bit misguided on this one. I think he's a bit too hype. Like man don't deserve a medal, innit? You get me? You know what I mean?
I'll come in next Shakara as well.
Yeah. Having said that, like the broader point that Johnny was trying to make here, man gets it. Like, because we have to take the context of what he was saying, innit? Yeah, and not just a statement, right? What he was saying is this nation still celebrates Winston Churchill.
Yeah. That was strong. That was strong.
It was a strong point, but he went too far with it, with the medal business, innit? You know what I'm saying? So
hyperbole.
I can't back that, but he said some useful things in it and things that I don't think should be missed out. To be fair, I haven't even watched the whole thing yet. I've only seen a snippet of it, yeah. But that point about Churchill and the fact that this guy admitted it, but Winston Churchill never admitted none of his wickedness, and he was an actual mass murderer, yeah. And this nation continue to celebrate him. So a nation that continues to celebrate Winston Churchill is very hypocritical if it tries to come down on Liam Neeson for saying what he said, it's nonsense. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. So yeah, I agree with that point, innit?
Yeah, no, I can respect that. I can respect that.
These things are hard to unpack, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let me come in regards to how the black community should deal with John Barnes. I want to say I don't think there should be no this what I want to kind of get away from still. There shouldn't be no homogenous response to him. I don't feel like that. I feel I want to encourage black people in general still, but black people specifically, because obviously that's man's people's, to be critically thinking in it and to look at nuances in arguments. You get me? So like Shakawara was saying, there's certain things what he likes and there's certain things what he don't like. I want everybody to have an opinion, as a quote from Patrice O'Neill, and not let their opinion have them. You know, like that. So know why you're saying what you're saying, because you believe that that's the case, regardless of what anybody else around you is saying. You know, like that. So yeah, I don't think it should be just any one response. But
Yeah, man.
But my response though to the thing, I saw it as like the title was, it looked like it was deliberately trying to be sensational. For that, I kind of like, like man's reaching in it, like he's doing the most, like he's trying to overemphasize that he wants people to know that I rate this brother as if he's done the greatest thing. Like for me, it's like, right, that's a bit too much for me. You get me? But maybe he's doing it for whatever reason. I don't know. But yeah, I want even him say, like Liam Neeson saying that, for me, there wasn't no outrage for me, man. It's like it's like his opinion isn't. It don't move me in it. I don't feel like he's got power behind him neither. That it's gonna negatively affect man for him coming out and saying anything like that.
But you gotta remember though, John Barnes was one of those because back in the old days, there's very few black people you saw on TV. So you had like Trevor McDonald, John Barnes, Lenny Henry, Frank Bruno. Yeah, that's them. That's everyone. I've just told you the list. So, so you know, historically, he was one of the earliest kind of black people I remember seeing on TV.
Yeah.
Don't forget Hattie and Kyle on EastEnders.
I don't remember them. I don't remember them still.
I said, Hattie. You don't remember Hattie? Oh, Lord.
Nah. Yeah, I mean, I think this might have been before I think John Barnes was on TV before the Real, definitely before the Real. He was like the World Cup in that 80s.
Yeah, he was a trailblazer in some ways, but he was. What was on? Well, hold on. Apart from playing football, he was just on like Question and Sport and that was it. And
yeah, but I mean that was the most back in those days. You know what I mean? Apart from Trevor McDonald, who was every day 10 o'clock, wherever, you never really saw black people.
But what it is with Johnny, yeah, is in like check a lot of his interviews on Talk Sport and them kind of things there. When a lot of the issues to do with racism in football came out, like Garth Crooks and him and, you know what I'm saying, others, yeah. And he gave a quite what's it called, a sophisticated analysis of racism and how it affects football. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it was hardly revolutionary, but you know, we come not to and for good reason. We don't really expect much of our black footballers over here, really. So so yeah, like it was good to hear him to hear such a you know, a constructive analysis from the brother in that respect, innit? You know what I'm saying? But I think he's taking it too far. I think MA's analysis is correct in the sense of he's much inspired by white liberalism as he is, you know, kind of anti-racist sentiments. You know what I mean?
But that in England, Britain, do we have a history of like black footballers or sport personalities who generally tend to side with the voice of the oppressive nature towards, say, black players? And what the example I want to give is when you look at America, for example, you see how a lot of radio personalities and sport personalities who are black, who will speak against like football stars or basketball stars who try to raise awareness of oppression in the land. So what comes to mind is Colin Kaepernick. Like there was a lot of pushback from many black celebrities against him not standing for the national anthem. But I'm not sure if that happens in England as much. I don't know if you guys have seen anything like that.
There was some beef among the players at one point. I think when the racism thing kicked off, I can't remember who called somebody a nigger or a monkey on the pitch. It happened a few times. But Rio Ferdinand got in trouble because somebody called, I think it was Ashley Cole, a coconut or a coon. And Rio retweeted the thing. Yeah, the accusation, and he got in trouble. But I don't even think that it's a lot of people in America, you know, that set up that. I think like we've got Muhammad Ali. As far as sports is concerned, you know what I mean? There's not many people. So I mean, Serena says something every now and then, you know what I'm saying? And we won't go any further with that one for obvious reason. But like, yeah, I don't think there's a whole heap of black celebrities that have consistently spoken out in America against certain things. At the moment, it's a hot moment, so we're seeing more things because the movement is stronger, if that makes sense. And if you don't say something, it kind of affects your celebrity, innit? Like if you're not saying something in this moment of time, I don't know, but definitely in the UK, there's no equivalent of Muhammad Ali or a Kaepernick.
No,
you know
definitely. Is there a fear though? Because because right now it's almost like when black people collectively are trying to speak out against misjustice, it's almost like we're being mischievous. I don't know. Is it like a fear of actually speaking against? And obviously, it builds into economics. Like if you're disagreeable with the person who pays your wages, then clearly, it's gonna be a problem, right? So.
I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, we're talking about football, innit? Like here in this country, like players in general don't speak out on anything in the British game. It's really like, and that's not really about football. It's more about this country. Because if you go over and watch football in different parts of the world, especially France and that, then man, why do you think Eric Cantona came over and thought he could boot man in the face? You know what I mean? Like the culture is completely different. Culture's completely different.
Well, let's be fair, yeah. Let's be fair. There's the British women's team. There's a few members of that team which have been very vocal about the racism that they've faced. In fact, there's a couple of interviews online as well, where they've kind of blown the whistle, so to speak, to talk about like from an insider's point of view. And we're talking about first teamers here. You get me?
What sport is that? What sport is that?
The British football team. That's what I'm saying. So
the female one, yeah.
Team and like is not too politically astute or even vocal. A lot of them being integrated into the glitz and glamour in the society. You know, your Ashley Coles and so on and so forth, like Raheem Sterling's and that. So my thing is to say, to draw it back a little bit, the conversation about collective guilt. I might say it might be unpopular, but I'm gonna say it nonetheless. If we say that collective guilt, I'm assuming we're saying that collective guilt is wrong, right? And if we're saying that, then the connotations would be that the whole of the German society would be they were mistakenly given collective guilt as though it was their fault when they were kind of and similarly, you can't blame all of the British people. You see what I'm saying? Or similarly, you can't blame all of the American people. Or similarly, you can't blame all of the African people on the West Coast who kind of. So my point is to say, if we're saying that, you can't blame all of the black people in the UK when knife crimes or other such crimes which are associated with the black community occur. My point is to say, if we are agreeing that collective guilt is a problem, then that's not to bring up the argument of reparations, for example, as you know, in the German example, the Jewish community did receive compensation, financial and otherwise. And interestingly, I think there's a Ghanaian architect who's just been commissioned to draw up the latest Holocaust museum in Britain, which I thought was interesting. But nevertheless, so that sanction or that reparations argument is one, and maybe the fiscal conclusions or the fiscal kind of connotations of what that holds is why it's such a hot potato and people don't really engage with it. But nevertheless, this collective guilt angle, I think that needs to be said. You see what I'm saying? For example, earlier when we was talking about the two-pronged approach of like military and economic, the military, under the auspices of AFRICOM, includes African partners. you see what I'm saying? Under the auspices of the AU peacekeeping forces. You see what I'm saying? So Ethiopian military is implicated in that. Kenyan military is implicated in that. For example, the East African theaters. You see what I'm saying? So these kind of, or in the West African situation, you've got like Ivory Coast and what. My point is, it leaves sour tastes in people's mouths over generations, and as such, I think divides perpetuate, and having attitudes which are like collective, as in collectively blame this group. Oh, they're from Mali, they're not actually Ivorian, or these people are Somalian, they don't belong in Ethiopia, for example. They're not conducive to like development, and the first thing before development is security.
Yeah, do you know what? I take the point. Let me tell you what the issue that I have with it though. Yeah, I'm not sure the analogy is completely is completely sound. Yeah. For example, colonialism is the colonization of a nation by another nation. Yeah. Like when people go to war, they don't differentiate between whether the soldiers on the other side are good or bad or not. In it, like it's war, in it. Yeah. German for dead. That's what the English are saying. Yeah, in their own language, right? So I don't think it's this. You can compare the colonized, you know, have relating to the colonizer as a collective to the colonizer criminalizing the colonized based upon the acts of a few individuals among them. I don't think those two things are the same thing.
Yo, Shaka, sorry to stop, man, fam. It's 2 minutes to 9:30 still. A man's gonna wrap up the thing still, so I want to make the man them just do the last words before everyone flies over to the new channel. Also, there was a few people saying that they can't see the link in the comments even after they refreshed. So I pasted it in the description. You should be able to see it there. Hopefully,
yeah.
You see it there, yeah. All right, yeah. Click that one there. I've been pasting it in the live chat as well. Anyway, still, so that's the next channel there. That more conversations of this type of stuff is gonna be happening still. So yeah, click that. Man's gonna wrap up the show after everybody gets their last words in. You get me?
All right.
Yeah.
So let me say that. Thank everyone, including the young soldier there, for jumping in today. Regardless of what we're talking about, what I'm happy is a form of unity, and the fact that we're stopping this show to support another show, and also we're coming together to do things at the co-unity spin. So what I look forward to is more of the brothers and sisters logging into more of these chats and eventually joining on themselves, and also turn up to places like Speaker's Corner to give your side, so we know we're talking to people directly, right? So that's just my 10 pence piece. There you go.
Yeah, love.
Come with a rapid one, Hey, Ziria, what are you saying, fam?
Yeah, big up to all the panel and respect.
Also, Ziria, I beg you paste the link to them videos where you said you was going into the globalization and all them thing there.
Austin thing. Yeah. I'm gonna try and watch that.
Yeah. Respect. Yeah. Yo, MA, what you saying, fam? For the wrap up.
Big up, everybody. I love these conversations. Long may they continue. Big up for all the work that you've been doing, and just keep it going, bro.
Yeah, respect, fam. As I said, make sure you keep me informed when there's any type of lectures or anything going on at your university, fam. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I need to get your number still. Long overdue.
Yeah. Man, I send that email still. I send it to you in an email.
Yeah, man. Bless up.
Man, just chop it up like that still. But yeah, respect everybody, everyone in the comment section, all of the fans, supporters, all of the trolls. Peace to everybody. You get me? Yeah, we like it, man. Our corner online, because we didn't do one in the park. But yeah, we need to do more online anyway still. And people can get involved as well. If you request the invite, as long as you got something, as long as you put some sensible questions in the chat, I might send you the invite. You get me? You can jump in and contribute just like how we do in the park. You get me?
And before you go, don't forget our corner 2018 at gmail.com. Got any topics you want to talk about? Just email there and we'll bring it up in the show.
Yeah, what you gonna say, Shakari? You gonna say something?
No, sorry, my fault. I thought my mouth was beating. Go on.
Yeah. Then then still the shows are wrapped still. So yeah, peace to everybody, man. We out. Log on to the next channel.
What?
One.